What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua says this about Andy Ruiz. He says, I granted Mexico their first heavyweight champ, Chubby little Andy Ruiz Jr. Wow. Anthony Joshua believes his loss against Andy Ruiz was merely him granting the Mexican people their wish to have a heavyweight champion. Joshua preparing for Alexander Usyk on September 25th in London doesn't seem to be processing his loss. The Briton was caught by a solid punch, disorientated, and then taken out by Ruiz at Madison Square Garden. But in his eyes, he gave the people what they wanted. Speaking to ex-footballer Gary Neville for an interview with Skybit, Joshua's statements were highly condescending to Ruiz. It attempted to take a lot of shine from his achievements. Nonetheless, Joshua says his loss was fate bringing happiness to other people. So, quote, I was in America at the time, and the little chubby guy, Andy Ruiz Jr., this little chubby Mexican, Andy Ruiz Jr., they say beat me, said AJ. They say he beat me. Yeah. And I know if I would have given up when I lost as an amateur, I would never be here. So if I let the ridicule and the stick and the bit of banter kind of get to me now, there'll be no future. So you just keep rolling, keep on rolling, and keep on rolling. This is my journey at the end of the day, and however I ride, this journey is up to me. The important thing is someone out there is going to take inspiration from your wins and your losses. Ask what he's learned from the Ruiz humbling Joshua quipped, don't get hit. No, I'm joking. What have I learned? It's just sometimes happens. It's just the way the stars aligned that night. And there are obviously no reasons as to why the stars don't go that way. There's a lot of things pulling the forces together. Sooner or later, it will or won't work in your favor. And that night, it didn't. On his future, the Briton added, I pay my dues and I continue my journey. Yeah, I crack on with it. Get on with it. There are no negatives with this situation. Like for me, even though I lost to Ruiz, look how many Mexicans I made happy. I granted them their first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world. My suffering made other people happy. I've changed his life, his family's life, so we can look at it from the perspective, and that's all life is about. Andy Ruiz Jr. may not see it the same way. Hopefully they can get the rubber match on with Ruiz is actually in shape to fight. Those are the words of Anthony Joshua. Let me counterpunch. I know there's an uproar about this, okay? I think what sticks out is the fact that Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua and how Andy Ruiz looked, okay? I always thought the significance of that was, besides being an underdog, was the appearance. Okay, the appearance of Andy Ruiz. He was a short, fat, visibly chunky Mexican. Very technical. He had one loss, and that was a split decision to Joseph Parker. And I think he got the nod because he was away from home. He was in the backyard of Parker. And Bob Arum threw him under the bus. Okay, in fact, he paid little regard to Andy Ruiz, and I don't really understand why Bob decided to do that, but he did. He threw Andy away. Andy was like, hey, I got one loss. And that's the problem with boxing today, but that's a totally different story. However, Anthony Joshua saying, I granted Mexico their first heavyweight champ, a chubby little Andy Ruiz. People try to take that as him saying, I allowed that to happen. Okay? And then I've seen other videos about this, him saying, hey, I allowed that to happen. No, this is what he said. He said, they beat me. They say they beat me, and I know. Hold on. He said, this is my journey. Don't get hit. Okay. He said the stars aligned that night, and there are obviously reasons as to why the stars don't go that way. There's a lot of things pulling the forces together. Sooner or later, it will or it won't work in your favor. And that night it didn't. Basically, all he was saying, you win some and you lose some. That's what Joshua was saying. You know, he said, like for me, even though I lost to Ruiz, look how many Mexicans I made happy. Okay, so it's just crazy how so many people took this as arrogance or a bad thing. Okay, this was not a bad thing. What this was Anthony Joshua admitted though he lost. Okay, he wasn't like other fighters that say and make up all types of other shit about what happened that night. Same amount of rounds. Got knocked down the same. The fight was stopped when both of these guys were in the corner. You know who I'm talking about. Okay. And this was nothing like that. It was not Joshua saying, I gave this to him. No, this was him saying sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. But him winning made history. It made Mexico the first heavyweight champion ever. That's what he was saying. And look how many people that he made happy. I granted them the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world by losing. Okay, see the next quote. My suffering made other people happy. He didn't say he let this shit go down like other people. Okay, i.e. blue blood. Like, well, no, you didn't let him do anything. No, he didn't. He didn't say that. He said, my suffering made other people happy. I've changed his family's life so we can look at it from that perspective. Okay, so that's not Joshua saying, I let this happen and it was because of me that Andy's a champ. No, it was because of Andy. And he knows that. He didn't say, I let this happen or I allowed this happen. Okay, maybe the wording was wrong. Maybe because I know people would try to shape and mold this however they want to shape and mold it. But this is what it was. See, reading the title, I granted Mexico their first heavyweight champion. You know, maybe the word granted was used in, I think, poorly by Anthony Joshua. He should have used better words. But if you clearly read the fucking article like we just went by, right, you would see that he was saying, I was beat. And that's how things work sometimes. You win some, you lose some. But look at the bright side. Look what it did for Andy and his family and all of his people that followed him. And he was talking about the Mexican people. Nothing more, nothing less, people. Okay? So I've heard inboxes on this. And, you know, it is what it is. Anthony Joshua, did he take a poke at Andy Ruiz about him being chunky or chubby? Sure he did. You know, because this shit looked funny. I mean, look, it was hilarious to see a short, chunky Mexican beat the shit out of a tall, buff ass Brit. A short, chunky guy giving a tall, big, muscular guy the business. It was hilarious. Okay, so the appearance of it looks uncanny. Okay, so yeah. Maybe he was looking at it through that. Maybe he was laughing at himself. He probably looked at that shit 100 times. And it does look funny. I think it's hilarious every time you see a short guy beat up a tall guy. It's just, you know, it looks so opposite, right? So, yeah. So did he take fun at him? Did he poke fun at him at the fact that Andy Ruiz was chubby? Sure he did. But the fact of the matter was that chubby guy beat him up. So, you know what I mean? How much fun could you poke at that? Because the reality speaks for itself. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Anthony Joshua saying that he granted the Mexican people their first American-Mexican heavyweight champion. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch.